Riders, welcome to episode 3 of the biggest e-bike motor test that's ever been conducted on YouTube. And today we are looking at the e-bike system in total. How is the integration? How does the motor feel out in the trail? How tunable is the motor? And how is the app in general? And last week we looked at the sound going up and down the mountain, and the first episode was the hill climb test. So riders, if you haven't seen those videos, link in the show notes, and also you have to subscribe to Sam's Bikes if you want to see which e-bike system is going to be crowned #1 for 2024 at Sam's Bikes. Now let's introduce the motors and bikes on test. #1, the Specialized Turbo with the Brose MAG S motor, 90 newmeters of torque on the Specialized Levo. #2, the Bosch Race Motor with 85 newmeters of torque on the Canyon Strive On. #3, the SRAM Powertrain System with the Brose MAG S with 90 newmeters of torque on the Gas ECC. #4, the Rocky Mountain Dyname 4.0 with 108 newmeters of torque on the Rocky Mountain Instinct. #5, the Bafang M510 with 95 newmeters of torque on the VMG Typhoon. #6, the Shimano EP801 with 85 newmeters of torque on the Canyon Spectral On. And lucky last, #7, the Giant Syncdrive Pro System with the Yamaha PW-X3 motor with 85 newmeters of torque on the Giant Rain E+0. Now before we head out to the mountains, this test and Sam's Bikes is not possible without our amazing sponsors. First up, Schwalbe. Every bike here has tacky chans. We're going the ultra soft on the front and the soft on the back. So they're the control tires. Massive shout out to Schwalbe, the long-term sponsor at Sam's Bikes. And then Quad Lock. I could not live without my Quad Lock. I love it. I have it on all the bikes here. I use it as a teleprompter. Riders, if you haven't tried it, you should definitely check it out. And then Crank Brothers. Every bike here has Crank Brother pedals. Riders, love the setup. Been riding the Crank Brothers shoes and pedals for the last 4 months. Absolutely love it. And finally, Toe Peak have just come on as a sponsor 4 months ago. That's really special to me because when I was 18, I bought my first multi-tool and now they're a sponsor. Absolutely love all their tools, and a massive shout out to all our sponsors. Now, let's get out to the mountains. Okay, legend riders, today's video is all about the integration of the e-bike system. How do the motors feel out in the trails? How tunable or customizable the motors are via the app and the app in general. So it's an overall look at the e-bike systems. And riders, this video was really hard for me to do because it is so subjective. This is how I find the systems. Maybe you find them different. Put it in the comment and let me know. And riders, I want to let you know I put in hours and hours of testing on each system. And when I was writing this video, I went out on the same day, same trails, with all the bikes and recorded it on my GoPro to really get the feeling out in the trail and my thoughts out in the trails, and then came back and wrote the script. So it really is my subjective opinion. Anyway, let's get into it. And first up, the Bosch Race Motor. So how's the integration? I think the overall integration is really good on the Bosch system. I like the motor, I like the shape, I like the size. I think it's a nice package. I really love that Bosch went with the grey for the race. Great marketing. I can't say much about the battery because it's a Canyon frame and designed, but I do like how it is mounted from below. And then we've got the display. Now, I like the positioning. I think the display is the best on the down tube here. I like that you have 10% increments. I thought initially you had 20%, but the color changes as you use 10%. So I like that. If I'm picking, I would say it would be better if it was a digital display and you had percentages and maybe a little bit more information of what mode you're in, but I'm picking, I think that's nice. And the remote, I love the size, I love the shape, I love that it's Bluetooth, but I don't love how it's not that reliable. It's not reliable. I've broken 2 in the last couple of months, and that's because when I put the bikes in my camper van, I put them upside down. I know I shouldn't. I do put them on a rug, and it's just easier for me to take the pedals off and the front wheel. But I have broken 2 remotes, so I'm not a fan of that. And now to motor feeling of the Bosch Race. Now, without a doubt, the Bosch Race is an absolute powerhouse. It pulls in low and high cadences, and it is a lot of fun. I'm not going to say it's a natural feeling motor. It's definitely more mechanical feeling. That's not a bad thing. This would be my choice if I was going to race. Definitely absolute powerhouse. It does have the overrun of around 2 meters in the race mode, which can be a blessing and a curse, because if you're on the wrong trails on switchbacks, it is a little bit like a wild horse, but also you only have the overrun in the race mode. And now tunability and app use. I think the app overall works very well. You can track your ride, you can follow your route, you also have security and GPS settings in there. And when it comes to tuning, you have 3 settings that you can tune the motor in each assistant mode. So that is quite good. Overall, the Bosch system is fantastic. Probably one of, if not the most popular e-bike system on the market, and it's definitely easy to see why. Number 2, the specialized system. I think the integration overall is really good, clean lines. I think the Brose MAG S is probably the largest motor in our test. Also, when I got the Gen 3 like 2 years ago, I broke the charging port twice, but Specialized has rectified that now, so we don't have that problem. I love how the battery slides in from the bottom because you don't have any problems with movement or connections. The Mastermind display is definitely a standout. You can configure it to, I believe, up to 15 different screens, and you can also connect your heart rate monitor and see it in the Mastermind. I absolutely love that, use that all the time. And if I'm being a little bit harsh, as I'm getting older, my vision is getting a little bit worse. Maybe the screen could be a little bit bigger. And the remote, it's good size, good ergonomics. If I'm being picky, it could be Bluetooth, like the Bosch one. What I really love about the Specialized is you can actually hold down the plus button and you can go into micro tune. So it gives you 10 assistant modes, and you can do that without going into the app or changing anything. And now to the motor and how it feels out in the trail. So we've got the Brose MAG S motor paired with the Specialized software. And riders, that's really important to understand. In this test, we have 2 Brose MAG S motors, one with a Specialized system, one with the SRAM system. So they're going to have different software. So those motors are going to feel different out in the trail. So for me, the Specialized system sits right in between a natural pedal stroke and a mechanical. And also it does have a very small overrun. It likes to pull in high and low cadences, and the motor is next to silent, winning the most silent motor test last week in episode 2. So it is easy to forget you're riding an e-bike out in the trails. And now to tunability and the app use. And I think the Specialized system is the best app and the most tunable motor in this test, putting that out there. So you can tune the Brose MAG S motor with 4 settings in each assistant mode, and you really can dial in the motor to your liking, whether you want it more natural or more mechanical. You also have, you can record your ride. You can also, like the system alerts you when your bike needs a service. You also have security system. The overall package is really good and it's really easy to use. Number 3, the Shimano EP801. So first up, integration. I think the EP801 is the best looking motor in this test, and maybe the integration on the Canyon Spectral On isn't the best because they have gone for the battery mounted underneath the motor. But if you look at bikes such as the Rottwild or the Orbea Rise, the integration is really minimalistic. I really like it. Let's go on to the display. Now, the display does everything it should. You can cycle through to a few different pages and you can see it really clearly. But for me, it does scream 2017. I think this is the same, if not a very similar remote they released in the E8000 motor. So that's 3 generations ago. I would love to see Shimano change and have a display on the top tube like everyone else seems to be going. It is the best position. And I also would love to see Shimano have a percentage indicator on the display, not 20% increments, because I don't want to know if I'm 20% or 40% of battery use. I want to know if I'm 33%. And then onto the remote. The remote is great. Possibly I'd like to see it Bluetooth as well. And also they changed the remote like a year and a half ago. And on my 2019 Decoy, I had a flatter, smaller remote. I think I liked that more. And now into motor feel, and without a doubt, the Shimano EP801 is the most natural feeling pedal stroke. It definitely feels like you're on an analog bike on steroids. Definitely the engineers have spent a lot of time mimicking that natural pedal stroke. I'm also going to say it does take more input from the rider. So why I think it's a natural feeling pedal stroke is the amount of watts you put down on the pedals to activate the system is more than the others. So it has a heavier feel, so it feels like you're pushing something, and in return it feels more natural. And this is something interesting and unique to the EP801. When you're riding in lower cadences, there is no overrun. But when you lift those cadences up to around 80 or 90, from my testing, you are getting a small overrun, which does help you on the technical climbs. And for the riders that are interested in auto shifting, Shimano do offer that in the 11-speed derailleur. This is the 12-speed, so I haven't tested that. But I see it perfect for that new rider out there because they're always in the right gear, so they've got the right cadence, and it just makes it's one less thing to think about. But if you're a more advanced rider, like me, probably you riders out there watching this, I don't think auto shifting is ever going to be for the aggressive mountain bike rider, because when we're out in the trails and we're doing a techie climb, we are seeing that rock slab, we're changing down, we're changing our weight, we're moving around the bike. So you don't change gears just with your hand, you actually change gears with your whole body. So I don't think it's going to be ever right for my style of riding. So now into tunability and use of app. So with the Shimano eTubes app, you can tune the motor. So you have 3 settings in each assistant mode, so you can fine tune that motor. And you also have 15 fine tune modes, or up to. And the way I really like to set this up is I had it in 10 fine tune modes, and I set it in a dynamic mode. So you kind of have 10 automatic modes that ramp up. Really love that about this system. The application, it's good, but I think there is a little bit of a problem with the connectivity. Sometimes it doesn't connect out in the mountains, sometimes it does. It can be a little bit frustrating. But overall, I think the Shimano is a great system for someone that's looking for a natural pedal stroke. Number 4, the new kids on the block, the SRAM Powertrain. So first up, integration. And SRAM are using the Brose MAG S motor, so the same as Specialized. Now, it is a biggish motor, probably the largest on the test, as I said. I think the integration is quite nice. I can't say much about the battery placement because it's a gas designed bike. But it is great to see SRAM have a 630, a 720, and they also have a 250 watt-hour range extender with the batteries. Now, let's go into the display. I love the display, super minimalistic, it's really good looking. Maybe again, as I'm getting older, maybe I'd like to see it a little bit bigger and maybe an option to have the text a little bit larger. And also, I don't think it's that customizable. I don't think you can change the faces like you can on the Specialized. And now onto the remote or lack of. So SRAM have opted not to have a dedicated remote for the assistant modes of the e-bike. So what you have is a very clean cockpit. It does look lovely. You have one pod for your gears, and the other pod is to change your assistant mode from 1 to 2. So there's only 2 assistant modes, and to drop your dropper. For me, I kind of think this maybe is a mistake. For my style of riding, I would like a dedicated remote, and I also want at least one more assistant mode. And now into the feeling of the motor out in the trail. I reckon the SRAM engineers have nailed the tune. It's not natural and it's not mechanical. It's right in between. And there's also an overrun, maybe not as much as the Bosch, but there is definitely an overrun. And just like Shimano, SRAM are offering auto shifting. Right, as you know where I stand on auto shifting. I did try it on the gas for about half the ride. I did a bit of tuning in the app. It worked okay, but for me and my style of riding, I'm just going to go manual gears all day long. And now into tunability and application. So the SRAM app is reasonably basic. When you connect to it, you can see your battery levels of your derailleur, your e-bike, and your dropper, which is nice. And when it comes to tuning, as I said, you have 2 assistant modes, and in each assistant mode, you have 2 settings that you can tune. So you don't have that much control, but as I said, the motor and the tune is really good out of the box. And if I'm looking at the overall system, I think SRAM have done a good job. I think we're probably going to see improvements and firmware updates in the near future. Number 5, the Rocky Mountain Dyname 4.0. Integration. So the motor is mounted vertically. Now, you can definitely see it's an e-bike. Like, the motor is quite obvious there. I don't think it's ugly. It is just what it is. And the battery, I love how it's mounted. So it actually slides in underneath the motor here. So I love that. And then the display. This has to be the best display on the test. It is massive. And for us aging warriors, it's perfect. You can read it easily and it's very easy to navigate. And then onto the remote, nice remote, very small remote. Maybe the remote's a little bit too tactile. So when you're climbing something techie and you want to hit it once, sometimes you actually hit it twice. But overall, integration, very good. And the motor feeling out in the trails. So the Dyname 4.0 is the most powerful motor in this test with 108 Nm of torque. It did win our hill climb test and it is a lot of fun. On technical hill climbs, this just eats it up. And it does like to be in the high cadences from around 80 to 110 RPM. It's where it's going to pull the hardest. In the lower cadences, it still goes okay. And that power is on, off. You don't have any overrun. And would I say it's a natural or a mechanical feeling motor? Well, a little bit of both. It's natural in the way it delivers it. So when it's on, off, so if you're trying to do like a techie hill climb, like the bike stops instantly. So when you want to start up again, it's really easy to start up on steep hill climbs. But when you have got the power down, that 108 Nm of torque, you definitely know it's an e-bike. Tunability and application. Rocky Mountain have opted not to have an app, and I'm completely fine with that. With their big display here, you can tune the bike just as quick as connecting to an app out in the trails. And when you want to tune your bike, you have 2 settings within each assistant mode to get those fine adjustments. I think for a smallish brand such as Rocky Mountain to make their own motor, battery, display, remote, software is bloody impressive. And this bike really is a lot of fun. Number 6, the Bafang M510. Okay, first up, integration. I like the look of the motor. I like the size. It's not a big motor. It's actually quite a narrow motor. I don't like the plastic housing on the non-drive side of the motor. It looks a little bit cheap. I think that could be improved. But the overall size is good. And the battery integration, we can't say much because it's not a Bafang frame. It's a VMG from Australia. But you will see here, it is downward mounted. I'd prefer it from the side or up through the bottom, to fight gravity. Then we go on to the display. Now the display is very similar to the Shimano display. Again, I'd love to see that improved with a display on the down tube here, but it does everything it should do. And the remote's completely fine, good size, good ergonomics. The finish is a little bit cheap and plasticky, but it does its job. Again, if I'm being picky, a Bluetooth remote would be better. And now to the motor and how it feels out in the trails. The M510 is a punchy motor. It likes to be in highish cadences around 75 to 90 where it's going to pull the most. It does have an overrun of around 1.5 to 2 meters in the tune that I have. And it does feel a lot like the Bosch race motor, especially in those high cadences. It is a lot of fun. Tunability and the application. You can tune the M510. You have 3 settings within each assistant mode, so you can do a fair bit of fine tuning. And the app itself, you have mapping, you have security, and you also have navigation. So the overall app is quite good. And the overall system, I think it's a cracking system, especially when you look at the price. This is allowing like entry-level aggressive electric mountain bikes like the VMG, like the Vitus, people with 3,000 or 4,000 euros, you can get into a great system. And lucky last, number 7, the Giant Syncdrive Pro. First off, integration. Well, it's based off the Yamaha PW-X3 motor. I like the look of this motor. It's very small, compact, good looking system. And the battery mounting, it is mounted from underneath, which I'm not a massive fan of. You are fighting gravity, but I've had this bike for over 2 years and I've had zero problems with connectivity. Then we go on to the display. Now the display is in the right position, but it is relatively basic. I like it how it's minimalistic. I would like to see, so at the moment you have 20% increments on the battery level. I'd like to see 10. And if I'm really being picky, I'd like to see a digital display like the SRAM, like the Shimano. And then we go into the remote. I really like this remote. It's minimalistic, it's never failed on me, and it's just a really good remote. And how does it feel out in the trails? Well, the Giant Syncdrive Pro is an amazing climber with that low end torque. So if you get the cadence quite low, you can even get the gears wrong and you can muscle your way up anything. When you do get those cadences higher, it does seem to fizzle out a little bit and lose its steam. It is better at low cadence, which is quite interesting because most of the other motors are better in higher cadences. And also, the torque sensor is quite sensitive. So if you put your foot or you rest your foot on the pedal before you go, there is a little bit of jerking, which I'm not a massive fan of, but you do get used to it, or you just start with your feet off the pedal before you go. I wouldn't say the Syncdrive Pro is a natural feeling motor. It's definitely more mechanical because it has quite a light pedal stroke. And tunability and application. So if you want to tune the Syncdrive Pro, you have 3 settings within each assistant mode. So you have a fair bit of options for fine tuning. And also the app in general, you have mapping and you can record your ride. So I think the overall system, the Giant Syncdrive Pro, is a great system. And if you look at the pricing on the Giant bikes, it makes it a fantastic system. Okay, Legend Riders, time for the conclusion. Which is the best e-bike system if we're looking at integration, motor feel, tunability, and application? Well, I'm going to say all 7 systems are great in their own way, but they are quite different if you go and analyze them like I like to analyze them. So, which is the best? Well, I'm going to give you my favorite 3. So, first up, if you just want to do the power hour and smash up the uphill to do the downhill, you can't look past the Bosch Race. And if you want a natural feeling motor, natural feeling pedal stroke, then the Shimano EP801 is fantastic. And if I could only pick one system, I would pick the Specialized system because you kind of get the best of both worlds. You have a lot of tunability in the Specialized app. I also absolutely love the Mastermind because you have I have 4 or 5 different screens set up. I also love that I can record my heart rate monitor and I can see it right there. The overall system is fantastic. Anyway, riders, that is it for this episode. And the next episode is going to be the extreme range test. How far can we get from one battery, vertical meters climbed? Let's find out. And riders, like always, if you have any questions, hit me up. I love to help. And you stay safe out there and we are going to see you next week.